Welcome everybody to Friday Live. Won't go through too much preamble this morning, so thanks for all for coming out. We're a week earlier than normal because of the holiday. This week we have special guest Dr. Daniel Greenwood from I think it's Greenwood Consulting, I think is his company, but I'm not positive, and he'll correct me on that in a sec. And he's going to be showing his app that he's built. I thought it was pretty neat when he demoed it to me last week. So I asked him to come on Friday Live. We're also going to be talking about BetterForms deployments, in that we've updated our base code from 2 to 2.1. We'll be talking about how that shift has worked, and we're sending out an email later on today as well, that will document everything we talked about today and how it affects anybody who has any running apps. We're also going to be looking at a new template that we're going to be releasing next week, and it will be showcasing all of the live, excuse me, all of these new live features that we just added in 2.1. All right, this month we're going to lead it off with our regular segments. We have Technique Corner with a pretty cool kind of widget that Hassan has made for one of his clients, as well as talking a little bit more in detail on some of these new features. I think you're going to have probably some questions there, and we're going to be doing a little bit of live coding later on. So I'm excited with that. We'll finish up with some questions and answers, and finally a bit of a draw and post show hangout. If you have any questions, let us know, please. We do encourage live participation. We don't want this to be a presentation type thing. So just chime right in. Feel free to ask questions. You can post them on Slack, but much better to be cam on and in person. Let's see. We have links to all of our shows are available on our YouTube channel if you search FM BetterForms, and then also post those up usually the following week. And we also have a link from the BetterForms app underneath the top, or in the top right help section, called Awesome BetterForms, and it's just various links for different things. Ignore this date that looks like a little bit old. Couple quick mentions coming up this next month. This is kind of an interesting conference. It's called Build, Grow, Learn, and it's going to be in Greenville, South Carolina. A couple of us will be going and attending that. So if you're there, come by and say hi, or invite us over to say hi, even better. And basically the idea of this conference, it's a little different from what I can tell from other FileMaker conferences, in that the fact that it's not super FileMaker-y. So it's not all technical. There is a couple technical things, but I think they're pretty light. And the real benefit is it's one of the main organizers, Susan Fenneman, and Beyond the Chaos. We've worked with her in the past, and they're a consulting company. And they basically consult on business operations, things like process and business operating systems and such. So I think this is going to be, I had to look at the talks, the speakers, and that's when I decided to take part in it, because I think it's going to be really beneficial. So if you have a consulting business or something, I think that would be really a good win to attend that. They have a 2-for-1 tickets. I think it's $400 per person when you buy 2-for-1, something like that. So it's pretty reasonable, I think, compared to, say, $1,700 or something for other conferences. All right, we'll jump right into things. So what I wanted to talk about is some updates that we have. So I'm going to just open up one of these sheets here, and let me know if you can see this okay. So basically, BetterForms, we have a few different, let me just sort of jump up to about here. We'll focus on here. We have a few different versions that we currently actively develop on, and this is pretty common practice. We have our production version we call latest. The actual fine number, version number changes quite often. We have the next thing that we're building, which is usually bug fixes and things like that, and that's called staging. And then we have a development branch. The development branch is usually a little bit further ahead, so each one of these branches is a little further. In our latest branch, we have was running base code version 2.0. And what we've done over the past few weeks, if your app was running on that, you'll see a different tag. It's the exact same software, but it's a different tag, and it'll say BF Legacy. So we've changed around our environments, our low-level environments here. Around a little bit. So now we have BF staging, BF latest, and BF legacy. Legacy is basically it will be a locked version of our base code, and we'll lock that for some time afterwards, giving anybody a chance to address any breaking changes or potentially breaking changes that we don't know about. So what we've done is we've taken all of the apps that we're running on BF latest, and we've moved those over into BF legacy. We've taken all of the apps that we're running in BF staging, and we've moved those to BF latest, and we've updated the code that sits inside this. Updated the code that sits inside this BF latest. The main reason we didn't just push 2.1, which is technically a non-breaking change, in terms of the naming conventions here. The major number, and this is with all software. We don't really do this in FileMaker because we don't really have much for version control, but the major number generally indicates significantly new features or breaking changes that require some type of migration to go from one to the next. The secondary number usually indicates either smaller feature releases. Normally they're not breaking, and then the smallest number is usually the build number. So every time we create a build, that number increases, a production build, that is. So the main difference between 2.0 and 2.1, there are significant changes underneath the hood, but it's 100% compatible. We didn't want to automatically push everybody into this new version, even though we've had probably about 20% of our community has been running that, just because of the access to those features, and I'll go over those in a second. But we didn't want to push everybody immediately right over, because when we did that once in the past, there was a bug, I guess you could say, that caught a couple people. And that one of the requests was that we lock that version for at least some time and give everybody some chance to test things out. So now what you can do is you can go ahead and test your apps by just changing this base code version within your environment, and you're doing your dev environment, not in your production one. And you can check out these features. So what does it bring? Let's see. So we have a number of technical things, and we'll be talking about these in more detail later on. One of the major differences, it has I call it aggressive caching. So it has a lot of deep caching of the assets that BetterForms uses to render the page. You know, when you're editing an app, you're editing the site, the styling, the navigation. Those are all sort of global things, and they're all related to the site object. And then you have your individual pages within your app. So if I use an app here, I have an app here. And let's just jump into this environment. And here I have a whole bunch of pages, right? These are individual pages, so that we'll call those, each page has its own object or its own asset. And then we have these items over here on the left, and that is like at a site level, it's a higher level, a global level. So what happens in the past is BetterForms would make a request to the server, and it would download that site data, and then it would make another request and download the page data. And as you navigate from page to page, it would continue to grab that page data. So now what we're doing is we're optimizing that, and the data is actually downloaded almost right away, or it's downloaded and cached, and that cache persists even after you've closed the browser, so you can come back at a later date and visit the page, and BetterForms won't need to download those pieces of data anymore, right? If you've made a save to the site, there's a hash that changes, and basically the site will refresh. We'll demonstrate that a little bit later on. Some of the other things are some other performance enhancements. Pages can be pre-cached. So that means if you have an application where, for example, the visionary bar app that we built for Engage a couple months ago, we wanted to make sure that there was no lag time when the person visits a page and they navigate around. So what we did is we pre-cached the pages. We load some of the data into the app right on the very first visit. And we'll talk about that as well. So that's another really big enhancement. App Sync is a really cool one here as well. A lot of the times you're building a BetterForms page and you want to pass data from one page to the other. In the past, you'd sort of have to, one of the techniques that we evolved into is setting this global model, the app model, equal to some asset in the page, some entity in the page. And then when you get to the new page, you would grab it and download it. and you'd have to sort of manually hand that off. And it was even trickier to do that in modals. So now with AppSync, you basically don't have to hardly do anything. All you have to do is have the key, let's call it the contact, and that key is synchronized automatically between the app model and the page model on any page that you have that key. So the data is kind of half global, half local, if you think of it that way. Later on, we'll dive in and we'll show some practical examples of that. And the last thing that 2.1 brings is full progressive web app support. So we've had partial support in the recently, but now we have it fully released in production. And we've been talking about progressive web apps for quite a while. They're pretty neat. We're starting to build more and more of this kind of stuff. And basically it allows for installable apps on a phone. And if you code it properly, you can have offline apps. So I'm going to attempt to later on code up do some live coding, and we'll build an offline app and show you how that works. Hopefully I won't fall on my face too badly. There are a couple of caveats about developing with 2.1. Currently, there's a little bit slightly different when you're in development mode, slightly different characteristics, because it does do this caching. And sometimes if you make a change to the site level, then when you reload the page, it tries to optimistically load again. Then it realizes that the page has actually changed. The developer has changed it, so it aborts that loading. So there's some funny behaviors, I guess you could say, that are expected, and we'll talk about those as well later on. So that's part of that. I don't know if anybody has any questions, and maybe one of the team, if you can monitor the chats there. Are we going to be able to do the same thing and pre-cache pages that haven't been gone to yet? Yes, we actually can. So the question was, can we pre-cache pages that a user has never visited yet? And we will be able to do that. There's pros and cons of doing that, and I'll talk about that too. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions about these updates at all. If not, we'll sort of carry on. All right. I'm going to flip this over to Hassan. Hassan is one of our team, and he's been doing some great work with pushing out some new features in BetterForms. And he's got a new technique that he's going to share for emulating mobile swipe actions.
Yeah, I'll take over right here. Can everyone see my screen right here?
Yeah.
So I'll give a basic demonstration of what it is. It's essentially just swiping, but you swipe one thing at a time. You probably see this in a lot of apps that have this, like especially on mobile. Almost every app that has a card feature will have something like this to delete. So what we made over here is we made an example. And this isn't that many lines of code. All you're essentially doing is you're letting this div container scroll. You're giving the class that you want to take up the whole room with full and shrink 0. What shrink 0 does is it makes the item take up the full amount of space and not get affected by flex. And then snap center is essentially the position where the scroll resets to. So what's happening here is this is what this gray is kind of what the full thing looks like in the scroll position. And the red is a part of the full object, but you're not scrolling to it right now. The scroll bars are invisible. This is essentially all it's doing is scrolling over. How I'm making it only do one at a time, I just have some JavaScript which looks at the elements, and anytime anything is scrolled in the opposite direction, so over here, I scroll this way, all the other ones just scroll back to their starting position.
So Hassan, in that container, so it's basically like almost like a gallery, right? You're showing two different pictures, but half the gallery is hidden. Is the parent container where it says product A gray, is the red beside it, or is it on top of it? I guess is it like
it's flexed together, so they're kind of beside it.
right?
So it's
Okay.
all kind of on one line, and you're just scrolling to it. So this is kind of emulating a swipe feature.
So I don't know if Pearson's on the call here. So I think this is going to be really handy when we start building more and more mobile apps, because we're going to have that effect.
And an example I'll show in a live app. I've logged out here. Let me just log in. So this is a live client app that we're using over here, and I've actually implemented this feature over here. So if I go to manage my order and I get taken to my shopping cart over here, I can swipe over to delete items they don't want in their cart. So I can swipe over, I can delete this. Yeah. All right. Anyone have any questions about this?
Is this available as a demo?
Yes, so we do have this as a demo. It's called Advanced Swipe one at a time, and this is the demo that you'd be looking at. It's fairly simple if you look at the code. It's not too much going on over here. The only complex part might be the JavaScript, and all that's essentially doing is it's just swiping things back to their original position, is just scrolling them back anytime you swipe somewhere.
Just thinking, I wonder what other ways we could use the same kind of an idea for. Um, you
So
you're triggering some JavaScript when you start to scroll. So you could effectively run named actions when you scroll, something like that too. Like if I wanted to remove it from a list or something, maybe I could scroll it across and then it would delete.
yeah, this kind of this like whole basis, I kind of use the same thing on Visionary Bar app, where it would be like when you scroll, except that was scrolling down a page. When you scroll down a page, the header would disappear. If you look over here, in Visionary Bar, when you scroll down, the header disappears. And then when you scroll up a certain space, it comes back. So it's kind of the same logic, but being used in the horizontal direction instead of the vertical direction in terms of the JavaScript, at least.
There's a neat app that Dan Smith made, and he does that technique as well. And for the mobile side, the whole navigation disappears, and it really frees up all the space on the on a device, so which is really handy. I'm wondering what other things like you could stick in the side, like there's scroll to delete, I guess anything that you see on a regular app, like you could put any other icons and stuff in there as well, just the same.
Yeah.
So, hmm.
Like it doesn't even have to be one button. You could have multiple buttons that show up, maybe like a delete or like an archive or something. Kind of, I think how Google Mail does it. There's not just one thing, it's like an archive and something else also comes up. So you can have multiple options.
Awesome. All right. If you have a use case for that and you need a hand, just reach out to one of the team. We can help you implement that if you have any questions or if you're looking for a variation of that example, and then we can hack that up accordingly. All right. Next is our feature guest, Dan Greenwood, and he has built an app over the past, he'll probably correct me a little bit, but about the past 12 weeks or so. He told me about this idea when we did some onboarding, I guess around Christmas time. And I thought that was really interesting. So and then he just checked in with me recently and he's made some really good progress. And I'm going to flip it over to him. Maybe he can start off by telling us a bit about his history and how he arrived here and what problem he's solving.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Charles. Um, it's an honor to be here and just share with you a little bit about what I've done. So, a little background. I didn't know what I was until I came to FileMaker Pro and I heard the term citizen programmer. And I was like, oh, that's what I am. I'm not a programmer. 10 years ago, I was the head of a K-8 in California and wrote my first app as, just kind of solving a problem. There was, this kids were taking lunches that their parents hadn't paid for. They started pointing fingers at certain kids, and I hated the thing because it was a problem in process. It wasn't a problem with the kids. We were just not keeping good enough track. So I, on a long plane ride, wrote an app in FileMaker using FileMaker Pro Go, put some iPads around so kids just checked in on their way to breakfast or their way to lunch, kept track of kids who had paid for lunch and billed parents for lunches that hadn't been paid for yet, and solved that problem. So that was my first kind of actual implementation of something. that was out in the real world, not just something I built for myself. 8 years ago, I left education and joined the family business, which is in career counseling. And it was a very manual process. It required 2 days of hands-on, one-on-one, face-to-face. I wanted to take the business internationally, so I took the assessment and moved it to Survey Gizmo, which is now Alchemer. And through a process of downloading the raw data and crunching it with Excel and mail merging with Word, I was able to put the report together. And then I taught myself Python using edX in a course in Georgia Tech. Eventually, I moved that Python program to an EC2 server and learned how to do API calls, so the process became fully automated. Then a friend of my son's worked at Amazon. He taught me how to use Lambdas, so I was able to turn the server into a serverless code base and automate the reports, and that was great. And we taught people how to use the assessment and the report, and we have a number of counselors who use our assessment and report and process, and we have a number of therapeutic programs that also use the assessment process. But I always wanted to build an app that helped counselors go through the process, or have the students be able to go through the career counseling process without a counselor. But you needed to have some intelligence, some knowledge base to be able to do that, to help them when they had questions. And I didn't have an answer for that until 12 months ago when ChatGPT came out, and I started playing around with that and realized that it was good enough. I was initially programming to 3.5, but realized that every iteration of the model was going to make my software better just by changing one line of code. ChatGPT was passable at 3.5, and at 4 it was good, and at 5 it's going to be even better. So that kind of got me into being a SaaS person. Like I'm now building an application that we would be purveying to the public, or not to the public, but to our counselors and to other organizations. And we're actually looking at the college market now through Best Fit Career Finder. So we built this tool, or I built this tool, and I couldn't use WebDirect anymore because it just wasn't good enough. It just doesn't have the functionality of the things that I wanted it to be able to do. So I looked around. I work with Mainspring and Mike Bergy. Big thank you to Mike for helping me set up things and set the servers up and so forth. But they directed me to Charles and BetterForms, and I kind of watched some videos, and I joined a Friday Live one time and watched all the other demos. And as I watched the demos, I said, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. Okay, they can do that, they can do that. And so I felt good about jumping in and just really appreciate the tech, but also the community. As I've had problems, I throw them up, and Jason and Jerome and Rashad and Neil have been great helping me. And of course, Charles with the heavy lifting, getting me onboarded and solving the big back end problems has been a real treat. So what I want to do today is demonstrate what it is that I have built. Let me just find which one it is here. Here it is. And let me switch over. Any questions, please feel free to jump in with questions. And if anyone can monitor the chat in case, but just please feel free to jump in verbally. So this is called Best Fit, and it goes through the Greenwood system process, which is first, when you're doing career counseling, you have to have the students think about who they are and who they want to become, what we call self-exploration. Then you show them careers for which they are a good match, and they explore those and they narrow them down, and then you give them an action plan. So I've got, it all set up over here. It unlocks as you move forward, and it's kind of a straight, linear path from from the self-exploration to the gathering of the action plan. You have the ability to download your report. So when the Lambdas score the report and generate the report, they save in an S3 bucket, and then this would allow you to just grab that report out of the S3 bucket. So if we go in here, the way this works is in the assessment, they have been given career values, 32 different career values. This one has chosen, this person, this sample person has chosen 5 career values. And what we want them to do is interact with these values and prioritize them. So you can, swap these around. And this is the thing that I couldn't do without making it a SAS, was do this kind of swapping. I want to have time for my kids. And I don't want to have to worry about being fired. All right, so they basically talk about in their careers, what do they value and what do they mean by that? Then they've got personal values, and let's do it this way. This is what they want. And again, they can fill more in. And then they're given motivators, and they are asked to select their top 5 motivators. Let's see. Let's go with that. All right. At this point, they've thought about who they are and who they want to be, and we shove that information over to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT comes back with 5 sentences. This is the crux move for a lot of career counselors, is dealing with the ability to aggregate all that information into 5 succinct sentences. And ChatGPT does a decent job of that. I've taken clients that I've worked with in the past, and I've run the data through this and found that 3 out of the 5 in the same order sentences are right there. And then maybe the edge cases, the 4th and 5th sentences, maybe, going in a different direction than I did with my sentences. But I found this to be very, very passable. The other thing that we want to do is take those 5 sentences and turn them into 5 words. So again, synthesizing those sentences down to a single word. So balance, security, fulfillment, stability, and flexibility. This was really the thing that was holding me back from being able to do this kind of app. But ChatGPT kind of unlocked that for me. All right, so at this point, they've kind of figured out who they want to be and in the priority order. Now what we have is the things that they've been matched with. That's the algorithm on the Lambdas and in the report. And what we have here is the ability to turn these down and to watch these videos. These videos are produced by Career One Stop. All of this data comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and ONET. And I've aggregated all of that into FileMaker database and made it simple, kind of in a single little meatball of information. These videos are all about 90 seconds long.
Awaken greatness in students and inspire them.
So this helps them kind of understand what the jobs are. And then we have the ability to ask ChatGPT. Again, when I'm going through this with clients, we're talking about it and they're asking me questions, do you have to be a nurse to be a nurse teacher? I'm asking kind of a stupid question here, but just to show you how this works, you can ask of it questions, and it comes back with reasonably good answers. Yes, typically a nursing teacher, also known as nursing educator or nurse faculty member. You must have a background in nursing. Okay. And then it goes on to talk a little bit more about things. I've found these answers to be very good. The other thing that you can do is you can just kind of ask it generally, hey, you know what my values are. I just told you. Okay, so it's okay. I will remind you that this is beta, okay? So sometimes the responses just give me the questions back, but for the most part, if you do it a second or third time, it works. And I've got to figure out how to get that to be more reliable with its answers. Here it goes. All right. So it comes up with this is why it's a good match, and then this is why it may not be a good match. And again, reasonably good answers given what it knows about you. Okay, so now we get to express interest. So we can kind of come in here and express interest, and let's express some interest, and we get down to teaching, and we're like, nah, we don't like teaching, so we can collapse the category. That's a nice little feature. No, we didn't want to do teaching, no teaching. Oh, come on now. Well, maybe education, maybe librarian. Okay, let's pick a few here. And you can see that as I'm clicking these, sometimes they go off and back on. This is a big model that's moving back and forth, and I got to figure out how not to have that model have to go back and forth necessarily.
Yeah, we can fix that up. I'll show you just a one line of
That'd be
code to
awesome.
fix that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of smoothing over the edges. Like first I want to make it work, and then I want to really clean it up. But so now we've picked a bunch. So usually they go from 100 to about 20 to 30, and I'm not going that many. The other thing I wanted to make sure of was we give them 100, but if there's something that they, that wasn't on their list that they want to entertain, I didn't want them to be locked into the same 100 that I gave them. So again, this is ChatGPT doing a search against. I throw all 1,000+ jobs at ChatGPT in the context window, and I say, find the best fit for lawyer, and it comes back and it does it. It also has the ability to, if I say law enforcement, it'll come back with a number of hits in, the police and so forth. So we've got sheriff, patrol, and private detective, and immigrations, and so forth. So this was another thing that ChatGPT unlocked for me, was this ability to do a fuzzy sort or fuzzy query and be able to get good results. Okay, so now we have a number of jobs and a number of job families, we call them, and they're asked to sort within the job family. So in teaching health, would you rather be a health teacher, phys ed teacher? I'm going to do that. I'd rather be a library teacher than a tutor. So you're basically asking them to sort within job families. So that's a small sort. So they get to think a little more clearly. Now what you do is you say, okay, well, which of these categories? Well, the nursing is probably the thing that's most interesting to me, and then the teaching, and legal services is last. So now they've got them in a nice order. So it helps them take those 20 and organize them, first in a small sort, then in a larger sort. And now they're able to ask for now which one is interesting to you. So let's go ahead and pick 3 here and move on. Now what it's going to do is say, okay, you said you wanted balance in your life. Is an acute care nurse going to give you balance? Yes, maybe. And so they go through these, and they also have the ability to ask ChatGPT again. They don't know if an acute care nurse has stability. And so again, ChatGPT will offer up, yes, aligns well with your desire for stability, as it's a profession in high demand, providing a sense of job security. So that's another thing. I wanted there to be some intelligence so that the student didn't necessarily on their own have to go through this. And counselors can use it and say, I don't know, let's see what ChatGPT thinks. And I'm just selecting these randomly. I'm not actually doing this, but because what I want to show you next is that now it says, well, of these 3, here's what you said was true about them. Which one do you want to move forward with and think about and kind of lock into? So let's go ahead and say nurse midwife. And now what it does is it gives you an action plan for nurse midwife. And I've created an action plan for every job in the database. Again, it's over 1,000, and I was able to accomplish that by, but again, ChatGPT, I went in and kind of gave it what I said, a template, and said, here's what I want you to do. Figure out, how can you find out more information? Well, you can conduct interviews, you can shadow. And what kind of degree would I need? Well, there's BSNs, there's RNs, then you'd need a master's because a nurse midwife is a master's level. And here's how you would gain experience. And here's some additional considerations that you might think about. So again, this is all ChatGPT 3.5. I want to rerun it with 4 because 4 is better at doing this kind of thing, but I found this passable. It's decent. So it's a combination of ChatGPT coming along and the tech at FM BetterForms and Charles. And so just really want to thank everyone for listening, hearing what we're doing. And we're pretty excited about what it is. Now I'm in the process of demonstrating this. I've been doing demos for the past couple days, getting it out to people. I've got a training video for my counselors up on YouTube. Now I need to do one for other organizations like colleges, and I got to sell it. That's what I got to do.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. A couple of questions that came up. You mentioned, I don't know if anybody else has been doing any OpenAI integrations, but I totally understand the concerns with getting quality data back and inconsistency. One of the things with these, when you're dealing with these LLMs, is the stuff that comes back is not absolute, right? It's really good, but it's like sometimes it just, I think I'm just going to give you a slightly different format, even though you've specified the format and such. So that's a bit of a challenge. That's something that they are working on in their latest models. And maybe what we can do is have one of the Friday Lives, we can share some of the stuff that we've learned, and hopefully some other people as well.
Because yeah, no, it definitely, no matter how much you set the function up, it sometimes just breaks it and just gives you weird responses. Or like you saw in this demonstration, it just gave me the question I asked back. And it's like, wait a minute, you didn't answer it. And yeah, I noticed with your Charles, at one point, when you would say, hey, how do I want to center this? It would go ahead and rewrite the whole thing and center that thing. And then it would say, and all the other code is the same, and it would chop your whole code out.
Yeah. And that's an example of that, right? And you can try to tune some of that stuff out with prompting.
Yep.
And it's still
no matter how
not ideal. But you can also do negative prompts. You can say, don't do this. And that actually can help as well. So there's a lot of little tips. And a lot of people are sort of finding these things out now. The more integrations, the more people do. So that information is becoming more readily available on how
the other tip I picked up was from listening to other people who were doing prompt engineering was tell it that you're going to tip it $200 for a good response. So I started doing that. I said, and if you give me a good response, I'll give you a $200 tip. The problem with that was it started taking too long. It was like thinking about it for too long, and it started timing out. I had to go backwards on that and say, all right, just give me a quick response. Don't overthink this, because it was just timing out after 20 seconds.
That's funny.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're doing now is we're building a tool for fine tuning where you can push in. I'll give everybody a quick demo of this. We're one of our co-op students who's working with us, Julia, is working on it, but let me pull it up. And it is it's a tool. I'll share my desktop and we'll make it available because it's nothing. You can do this totally in FileMaker. Okay. You do not need to have a web interface for this. There's only one user who's going to typically be using it. But we build everything. We eat our own dog food. So the idea here is that it's in this section here. You would have different projects. So one of our projects would be the HTML editor, and one of your projects might be a certain phase where you're doing a call to GPT. And then from there, you have data sets. So that would be a set for fine tuning. So a whole bunch of questions, a whole bunch of answers that you can give it and say, these are really good quality answers. And these are really good quality answers. And this is what I want to see. So it's like prompt and result. So you'd have these different data sets. And then from the data sets, I'm not sure how far she's gotten here, but let's see if Oh, oops. Okay. So I guess the delete works. But I think you can add some sets in here as well, right? So the idea is that you could start to develop these data sets, because you might have a data set that's really good, but then it's like I'm going to change my prompting, I'm going to change my expected results slightly, and that actually might work better. So how do you objectively compare those two? So that's the idea there. And then from the data sets, when you enter the data sets, we'll have the application that's doing the actual usage feed that data in. And then you've seen this on say in many apps where it says, was this result good or was it bad? And if it was good, then we use it for training. And if it was bad, we try to train it out for whatever reason, or whatever the reason is, it's bad. So that's something we're playing around with ourselves to learn about that. What other Dan, what other tricks could you maybe share with GPT and in OpenAI integration?
The context window is really important. The data that you feed it. And so I found, and the way I learned JSON was because I had to interface with ChatGPT. So when I shove information at ChatGPT, I put it into a JSON. So it's in a structured format, and it seems to really like that. Originally, I was just giving it paragraphs of information or lists of information, and it wasn't really figuring out, it had to build the context within it. So working with JSONs, and it doesn't, it really helps it figure out what you want to do. The other thing that I did was I kept track of all the conversations, and I kept the context window grew because I kept adding the previous conversation so that later on it could reference things that it had answered before. So it's really quite cool when it says, well, it's a lot like it's like the nursing teacher that you asked about before, but here you'd be doing X, Y, and Z. So I found it to be really good, and I'm really excited about 5. I found 4 to be good, not great, not as good as a counselor in any means, but definitely better than nothing. And I'm hoping that with 5, 6, and 7, it just even gets better.
Yeah, I think that 3.5, in all honesty, for our purpose, which is code generation and code understanding, descriptions, debugging, that kind of thing, is actually good enough. What's not good enough in 3.5 is the consistency of results. But that's where the fine tuning comes in. So 3.5 with fine tuning in many cases can outperform 4 on a given narrow task. And we use with one of our other products, Synergy, we use 3.5 and see pretty good results with that. And we've only, Eduardo can probably add to this, but I think he's maybe done around 2 or 3 fine tunings, 4 fine tunings or something like that, iterations. And we're already at the quality that we more or less need to be. There's maybe the odd exception there. So that's really, really handy. And fine tuning is maybe it sounds really complex, but it's really simple. You basically take a prompt and you take what you expect is a good result, and you just keep building records of those, and then you send it off, and then in not a half an hour, maybe 6 hours later and $5 later, it comes up and says, here, I got a new model. And then you reference that model in your API calls, and all the future ones have that kind of guidance that you've given it.
Yeah, I've not done that fine tuning, but that does sound like a really good idea.
Yeah, well, I think it's really good for us. I don't know how precise it would be for you unless you want to change the wording and stuff. What might work well for you in terms of passing context is to have GPT summarize the context. So summarize this in point form. I don't know if anybody's done this before, but GPT is really good at writing its own prompts. So you say, take all of this information, summarize this so I can use this in a future prompt, and it'll put it all in point form, in a very succinct point form, and then you can feed that back in. So it has some sort of memory that can carry on. Another option you might want to look at as well is they have a new assistance API, it's called. And the assistance API basically allows you to create what OpenAI calls a GPT, which is it's an assistant that can reference a certain number of documents, and it can also call functions. And the function calling may or may not be of use for you, but the referencing the documentation, now you can give it a whole bunch of documents of a bunch of related stuff, maybe even counseling, wording, and how to word for, communicate with teenagers or whatever. I don't know, those kinds of things. And it can kind of incorporate some of that knowledge. So that might be something worth checking out.
Yeah,
Does anybody have any questions for Dan at all? Dan, how long did it take you to build that?
You're right. It was I was embarrassed to be asking you over Christmas break to get me set up, and you're like, heck no, let's go, man, build. So we set up on December 27th, and this isn't my full-time job programming. So I mean, I was doing it part-time between December, January and today. So it took me a little bit.
I always love it when these citizen developers say, it's not my full-time job, but I was doing this Lambda integration, and then I did this in Python, and then I did this over here, and then I set up that. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know what it'd be like if you did do your full-time job, right? But holy cow. Like there's lots of, it sounds like you did lots of integration, lots of learning and stuff like that. Is most of your app now, though, in terms of your overall stack, how much is FileMaker and BetterForms, and how much is outside of those two technologies?
Well, I just tinker with this kind of stuff. So I've got a Raspberry Pi over here, and I'm building an AI agent that can count fish eggs, because my son runs a hatchery, and when we go visit him, we have to count fish eggs, and it seems stupid to do that as a human. So I'm training
OpenCV or
Recognition. I'm going to use Recognition to do that. But if anyone's got a better idea, I'm all ears, because I'm just on the beginning phases of that. So yeah, no, and I built a monitoring system using an Arduino. It monitors the water flow and it texts him and keeps track of it and so forth. So this is what I just do. I tinker and I play.
Oh, that's cool. That's fun.
Colleen, it looked like you had a question.
Well, as I was thinking about training the models and so forth, right? So I've been dipping my toe in and playing, but now I have one client that has a very specific need. And I'm wondering, should I be using different accounts? And then I've got another client that I'm thinking about, you could be using it for that. Should I be having different accounts for these things so that if I want to train it or to understand, to get a fit for this area versus another area?
No, you
Does that
can
make
use the
sense?
same account, because the trained library sits like a file effectively on their server. So it's not like you're going to get cross-contamination of data or anything like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
So we use one account for, several businesses, and that's totally fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to divide up the money either. I mean, it's inexpensive, but and you've got to prepay now.
Yeah, they changed that. I don't know. That seems a little bit screwy, because like we use about $5 a day is what OpenAI is accumulated, $2 to $5 a day, sometimes 7, 12, depends on which business is doing how much. And so they want us to they've changed their pricing model to prepay, and I'm not sure the logic in that. I know a metered asset, usually it's okay. I wonder if they're really getting, like, some people are doing crazy bills. Maybe, who knows, maybe they're
and then not paying. I know it's
and
weird
skipping out on a
because
new account or something.
I guess yeah, and I made the mistake of saying, oh, I'll prepay, I'll pay $50, and and then I found out it expires at the end of the month, and it's like, wait a minute, what?
There's a way of doing an auto renewal, but it's not working on my account, so I don't know. It seems like a bit of a fail. I think it's kind of interesting that you have this company that's worth, I don't know, 20-40 billion dollars now or something like that. And they've been pretty good, but a year ago it was super buggy, the interface, considering how much resources they have. It was super, super buggy, and their UI is okay. The API is okay to work with. It seems to be okay. It returns decent information and such. So maybe if you guys are interested, we could have a Friday Live just on OpenAI integration, and maybe some, I don't know, some cool things we could do there or something like that. Let us know. If anybody has any other questions for Dan, fire away. Otherwise, we'll carry on. Oh, I guess that's it. All right. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for sharing that. I look forward to checking in from time to time if we could, and let us know how you're making out. So, for other people who have some type of a startup, a vertical software as a service, I'm looking at starting up a new sort of semi-private group for people who have FileMaker based software as a service or verticals. We would probably have a meet once a month kind of thing for an hour and just share ideas. I wouldn't have maybe the odd time guest, but mostly the goal is to share our ideas and our marketing and administrative challenges and all these kinds of things. So if you're interested in that, please do send me a direct message so I can put you on a list. And we're hoping to get that going over the next month or two. All right, we're going to move on to our next thing, which is I want to showcase some of the features and abilities of version 3 and 2.1, because we backported a lot of these new features. We've backported them into 2.1 from our version 3 branch into our base code. Our base code is kind of like the operating system that runs BetterForms under the hood. It's the code that makes everything work that you don't have to write. Incidentally, I was watching some of these videos on Claris Engage, and there's one on how to build scalable web solutions. Watch it, and I want you to see how much work it is. And he's got some diagrams and things like that, and he's assuming that everybody who's watching it is savvy on these things, and it's quite a challenge. Just if you get a chance, just watch that video to give you an idea of what happens under the hood and what you don't have to do when you're building an app this way. All right, so let's jump into that. I'm going to minimize this, and please do. I'm going to live code here. So I've par coded some things. I intentionally did not do everything, and I intentionally did not test anything. So if I get stuck, I apologize. Hopefully there's some eagle eyes and can help me out here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to show you a new template that we have. And the template will be made public in about a week or so's time. We just got to clean up a few little things. We've basically forked the Visionary Bar app. And when we did that, we created basically a mobile PWA app from that, because that was sort of already out of the box. So this happens to look a lot like that, and that's okay. So here's the template kind of raw as it is. So basically I have a home page, an accounts, an appointments page, a contacts page, and I haven't unplugged or dewired all of the login stuff because that was using OAuth. And I think for the template, we won't put OAuth into it. You can add that in later on. Let us know what you think. The main gist of this particular template or this UI is that you have a header, so it still works on on desktop. It's not super dialed in for desktop. It's actually mobile first in the sense of that's where it's designed. And then again on mobile, as I shrink the screen down, I can see that, except for my dev tools here, I can see that my navigation goes to the bottom. So it's a little bit more mobile app-like, right? So navigation's at the top, navigation's at the bottom. And I'm just going to run through the template, then we'll look at how things work, and then we'll start coding it up a little bit, and then we'll make it show you the performance improvements in 2.1, and then finally after that we'll try to make it offline. All right, so here is our appointments here. So this is just using Hassan's sticky header technique that he demonstrated the last Friday Live, I think it was. And we have these would be like simulated appointments, that type of a thing. And then the same thing happens on mobile, same idea. And then from here, I can click into one of these, and this would be like some type of a detail type page. I can have a back button, some type of a save button. I would run some save routine, maybe change the status. I didn't bother putting any drop downs in here or anything like that. They're just text fields, just because it doesn't have too much opinion. And that's more or less it for the appointments page. And then we have a contacts page. And the contacts page is just some random contacts, just to show you kind of an idea of a different type of UI here. And if you have ideas that you think would really fit nicely into these kinds of things, let us know and we'll add it into the templates. And this goes for all of the templates, because we really want to give you sort of the raw tools. One of the challenges we've had with onboarding with templates, though, is if they have too much opinion, too much trickery, if you will, too many cool stuff dynamic navigation and dynamic buttons and things, which we think are really cool and awesome. If you're brand new and you're trying to hop into that, it's a nightmare to figure out what's what. So we've actually taken a different approach. We've gone through the multi-page tenant template. We've gone through the client portal templates, and we've removed all of that complexity. So the latest changes is maybe about a week old, and it has very, very, very simple things. And then if you want to build some kind of cool dynamic stuff on top of that, we'll leave that up to you instead of having some opinion there. All right, so that's basically the template. So let's look at under the hood how some things work. I think what we'll do is we'll start. Let me see, we've got 12 o'clock here. I'll spend about 15 minutes just talking about that, and then we should leave us enough time. I'll talk about how the header and the footer work and how you can do that. So these are using slots. Slots are predefined areas in your application where you can put code in. And then you can effectively reuse that code, somewhat like a component. But the concept of a component is you can put the code anywhere. You can put that thing anywhere. A slot is a special spot. So these are found in our styling page here underneath slots. And I have two slots. One's form header, one's form footer. Form header, of course, is at the top and the form footer is at the bottom. The fundamental difference, your UI won't look quite like mine. This is a staging environment here, is how it works is you can see that it is normally hidden, the header at the top, and on a small screen, it's being displayed. So small, and this is smaller, bigger. So basically everything, all this code in here on a big screen is going to be displayed on a small screen. It's hidden. And the same thing or the opposite thing is held true for this form footer here. Right. We did use this particular template is sort of geared towards intermediate advanced, BetterForms, if there was such a thing, compared to novice. I wouldn't recommend using this if you've never done anything before, but if you've built an app or two, then it's totally fine. And the main reason for that is we do use a lot of HTML in the page. We try to use native BetterForms elements wherever possible, but you can't easily in the header and the footer. So and it doesn't really make sense because that's a very, very customized area. So it has top navigation here as compared to the sidebar navigation. And what are we in? Which slot is this here? This is a footer. So in the footer slot, you can see there's broken down into 4 different areas here. And there's basically an icon and this is the icon, and then this is the text. So if you want to change that, if I wanted to add an extra, I could Command-Shift-D, and that would give me an extra icon at the bottom. There's only so much space, so you got to keep that in mind as well, right, for mobile device. All right, so that's the way the headers and the footers work. I'm just going to check the chat really quick. Okay. All right, and let's go on a little bit more now, and I'll just talk about how we built this homepage. It's pretty straightforward. Try not to have too much opinion again. And basically, let's look at the data in the page. We broke the data down into 2 objects. One is daily announcements, where it has a text and a topic, and the other one is weather forecast, text and topic. So that's these two bullets here. May not be suitable for your use case. We wanted to throw something in there so you get an idea. And then finally, we have just different sections in the app. In the thing, they're all clearly labeled. This is the daily announcements. This is the weather forecast. This is an alternate one, which we'll probably can get rid of now. And finally, there's a vehicle assignment at the bottom, which is that vehicle section down here. So depending on what your needs are, obviously you're not going to follow this, but at least it gives you some idea of some of the things that you can do. This particular page, we won't bother making this dynamic from the server. You can imagine you could fetch the data for the daily announcement and the weather from your FileMaker server. Maybe it would hit some kind of weather API once, and then, or you could even have the app itself hit some kind of weather API and load the data and not burden FileMaker, however you wanted to do that. All right, let's go to this appointments page. And this is typically how you would build stuff in BetterForms now. So one of the things is you'd normally do is, let's go to our appointments page, and I'll show you the main difference. This is going to be sort of the first difference between version 2.1 and 2.0 is this is list, appointments list. All right. I have some development data in here, right? So I have some appointments in here. And I am currently right now, the on form request is off. Normally that on form request would be on. So let's do that. We'll turn this on form request on, and I will turn my development data off, save that. Now let's go over to my file over here. This is our examples template. So we'll be coming up. Sohaib's going to prepare an update for this over the course of the next week, and we'll upload this to our for deposit, or sorry, for our Dropbox for download. But let's have a look in here. I have added a set of hooks in here for BetterForms, and I've added 2 pages, one for appointments and one for contacts. In my appointments page, let's go into our on form request. I have nothing in there at the moment. Started to code something and that's it. So let's just make sure. Let me save this. And we should have no appointments there now. So obviously it's not loading any data. So something I often do is I'll do like an alert action or some type of an action in here just to make sure that it's kind of everything's all connected. I think this one's working fine, so I'm not going to bother. So I want to fetch the appointments. I don't really have any appointments in here though. That's the problem. We just added this table, so maybe I can add one appointment in here, and I'm going to call it Friday Live. Friday Live for March, and the address is going to be Zoom 123 Main Street, right? And the date we'll put, what is it, March 23rd, 2024, just something like that. It looks like we're missing one of the fields that was on the screen, but that's okay. Service is a Zoom call, whatever that means. And so I got at least one record in here. I'm going to click is active. All right. So I got at least one in here for now. That's great. And what I want to do is I want to fetch all of this data. This is how we would normally do this, right? We do get column as array, and I would fetch the as JSON, where the is active is 1. Okay. And let's have a look at what that actually is doing. If you haven't done this, and this is very rudimentary for anybody who uses BetterForms normally. JSON format elements. All right. So that's just fetching that one appointment, right? And let's do one more set variable, and we're going to push the data into $BF model. JSON format elements, user keystrokes. Oops, not that. Sorry, JSON set element into the model under a key called appointments. If I make a typo, if somebody could chime in, this would be $appointments. And this would be a JSON array. Yeah. Yeah. All right. If you incidentally keystroke, crazy valuable keystroke, if you're using a Mac keyboard, function return closes the window, saves you so much time. Like that one thing is worth a pint of beer next time you see me. Maybe 2. Okay. All right. So that's it, right? So we got our 2 lines of code. We grabbed the data, we put it in the model, we're done. Save that, and let's visit that page again. Hey, all right. Right, we fetched our data, we've displayed it. Incidentally, I just created this the other day. I used the AI assistant. I did not edit anything on here. Looks like our time is 10 a.m. 10 Eastern. All right, so if I was to visit that again, you can see, okay, so this is what the feeling, it's not bad, right? It's not bad, it kind of works, but you see that spinner, right? I go back a page and you're gonna see the spinner right here. It's got 3 dots, right? As it does the call. So it's doing a call to FileMaker every time, which is fine. It doesn't burden FileMaker. The regular FileMaker proper, if you will, does the same thing. But the problem here is we're going to the server and we're waiting for the data. This data is not going to change that often. And if it does change, it's okay if it updates like a half a second or a second later. It's not a big deal, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a different approach here for fetching this data. First of all, every time I go to a new page, so let me just refresh this app for a second. All right. So you're gonna notice something different with 2.1 when you're editing. I'm gonna make a save here. And when I make a save here, when I refresh this, you'll see the app, it tries to optimistically load. It thinks it doesn't know, this app here does not know that the server has changed the code, right? The developer, you have changed the code. So when I hit refresh, it's going to start to render based on the last time it visited the page. And then it's going to, at the same time, do a very light call and say, hey, I have version 127. Can you tell me what you have? And then the server will say, no, that's old. The developer just changed that. Here's the new data. So when it receives that new data, it aborts its current load, which it's already started to do to save you time and your users time, and it'll refresh that. Now that only happens when the developer makes a save. It won't happen any other time. So I'll hit refresh. You'll see it refresh. It's done, and then it goes back again. So you'll see about a 1 second delay. That 1 second happens on every current BetterForms app that's version 2.0 or below. Right. So now we've gotten rid of that. So that drops our instant load time quite a bit. And you can actually see it here. If I just hit refresh, you hardly even see the page load. You see it blink a little bit. Right. So it doesn't really get too much quicker than that. All right. So that's the first performance improvement. Right. That's a pretty significant one. Most people who are using BetterForms apps are in the app quite often. So it's not just the first visit, it's the subsequent visits that they're saving on. And so that's the first win. Now, when I go to the second page, I haven't gone to the second page since I've refreshed the app. You're going to see the spinner load because there's an on-form request. And then it's going to fetch the data. So there's a spinner and then it's done. Right. So we wanted to get rid of that. So one of the strategies we do is we don't do an on-form request. Let's do that. And let me go back to here and I'm going to hit refresh again. So when I go to here, you're still going to see a spinner. But the spinner doesn't last as long. And the reason you saw that spinner is because it went to the server and it fetched the schema, this stuff, from the page. So it went and fetched that because it doesn't know what that page is yet. Excuse me. And now when I go back to here, there's no spinner. Now, of course, there's no data because we're not fetching any data, right? So I go back, there's no spinner. So what the second enhancement that, and by the way, Eduardo is the one to credit all of this stuff. I think he's on the call. He did almost all of this coding here. So I'm just taking the credit for it, but he did all the work. So you can see that it loads instantly. So what's happened now, and even if I go back to here and refresh, because I haven't made a save over here, so it refreshes instantly. And when I go over to here, no more spinner. So that's the second improvement, is the page, once it's been visited once, it's already cached in the device, right? This page here, this contacts, I have not visited the server yet. So when I click it, it goes to the server and it comes back again, right? And then now it's there. So now every time the user comes back, they have this really, really nice performance. All right, so that's the next technical thing that's different here, right? You don't have to do anything to get this performance improvement. It just happens out of the box. There's nothing to really do here. Now, let's go back over to here, and I really want to take a different approach. We've been building apps, and we're trying to always kind of find new ways of building things as we sort of understand technologies more and experiment. And one of the ways that we've been doing things differently is not by loading the data into the app model, sorry, the model of the page. So let me just talk about those models for just a quick second here. Let me go back here just a sec to there. So one of the things is I just made this little quick diagram here. I didn't paint it or make it to scale. So, all right. So in BetterForms, we have this global area here. We call it it's in FileMaker, the access to that global area is $BF app. And that is the equivalent of like a $$ variable in FileMaker. And then we have, that's like the site level, or we call it our site, right? And then we have, like, these are two pages, my appointments page and maybe appointments detail page. And then we have $BF model. That's how we access the data that's in that page from FileMaker. Or if we're talking from the context of BetterForms, it's called the model. It's just called model. This one's called app, that one's called model. And then the same thing on this page. So what we can do is if we take the data from the server, we push it into here, then we take the data from there and we push it into here. Okay. And we push it into here in this fashion. We can push it into here at any time because we don't have to be on the page. And every time, if we store it on there, we come back to that page, we can just grab it again. So that was the sort of the next evolution of things, of optimization. So now what I'm going to do is in my FileMaker app, I'm going to, in here where I put the data into $BF model, I'm going to put it into $BF app. And I will change this one here. I'll be a maverick and try to edit code right in here. You know, it took me about 20 years before I realized you could do this. And they shouldn't even, I don't even think they should do that because people try to edit code in there. All right, so I'm going to put the data into $BF app. And that's going to send the data from FileMaker into the top. But the problem is, let's turn on our on-form request as well, just for a second so we can see it actually work. And we don't see anything happen, but let's have a look in our app model. And here is our appointments. Actually, it looks like I have some global appointments here. So I have some data left over. Yeah, I have some data that's in my app model already. I'll show you that in a second. But it pushes it into there, which is okay, but I still need to get it into my page because my page obviously doesn't have any appointment data. So what we had to do in the past is we would have to do something like this. Turn off my on-form request. I would create an action called on-form load, and it would be a function. And that function would do something along this line. It would say model.appointments equals app.appointments. And that would copy it over when the page loads and we'd have the data. So it kind of works. But it's a pain, right? It's a pain to kind of have to do this and have to even understand that. So what we added is the next feature. If you have a key in the app model, let's have a look at our app model here. If we have a key in our app model, in this case, I have one called appointments and I have some development data in here or just example data. I'll get rid of that in a few minutes. What I can do is if I have that same key in my page, so let's go into my appointments list, and it's also called appointments right here, appointments. I have a new feature here and we've got an update. This will be rolling out on Sunday. Right now, I think it's hidden behind a feature flag. So it'll really release on Sunday. And it says sync with app. And what sync with app does for that key, and these all automatically appear as you add keys into here. What sync with app will do is it goes and grabs the data from the app model and pulls it in. And now it's sync. So that means if you change the data in this, it changes it back in the app model as well, right? So all of that stuff is synced, all of those contacts. If I change anything in there, edit anything, it's already saved globally. So if I go back to a page and come back, all that data is there. Now, where that's really, really handy is if you have a multi-page application where you're going from, section A, section B, section C, copy, let's see, duplicate, section D, and so forth. This might have the mailing address, the shipping address, the line items. It's all the same invoice, right? So all of that data is all shared now. So there's no more handling or there's no more touching of anything like that. It all works pretty simple. You do have to follow a couple things. You have to generally update the app model now instead of updating the page model, which is what we're already doing with that hook. Okay, so that's not so bad. So let's see what we got now. So we're grabbing the data from here, but I'm not actually, I think if I refresh, let me see, and I go back to here, here. Oh, I still have on-form request turned on. So let me turn off that now because I don't actually need that anymore. And let me know if I'm getting too much in the weeds here, but I'm just trying to, I know there's some people who build pretty advanced stuff, so I'm trying to make sure I include them. Okay, so let me do this again. And all right, so we see our development data because that was the data that was in the model, right? Now, what I need to do now is I need to have FileMaker, sorry, have FileMaker that returns the data into the top, but I still need to update this page. I can just go on the assumption that the data is like, you can see it's correct, right? It's actually still doing a call, by the way. It's still doing a call. Oh, no, it's not anymore. I turned it off. But it's instant now. So that's a bonus. But I need to still check the server to make sure I have the most modern data. So let's go into here again. Let's go into our on-form load and let's run a utility hook. Right, we're going to run a utility hook and I can pass maybe an argument called, say, refresh. This is just an arbitrary value, and that's going to run a utility hook over here. So let's go into our utility hooks. I don't have anything here. Actually, it looks like normally this is commented out when you first add one of these in here. And I'm going to say else if $type equals refresh. All right, and then I want to perform script. And I want to perform that on-form request from that. Where is it here? Appointments. And I'm just going to do the same thing. That same on-form request that I just wrote. So it's going to call this one here. When I hit that refresh key, it should, hopefully. And let's see. Oh, we don't want to hit save. Did I save it? Let me just make sure I changed I did change the argument there. So let's see. All right. There. So what it did is it loaded it had some data in there already, but it went to the server. It did a call, sorry, to FileMaker, and now it's got the most recent data, right? So what's really cool about this technique is, look, it's instant and it's still accurate because it says Friday, March the 2nd. Let's change it to next month. It's April. So just to prove that we are fetching it. Now you're going to see it not changing instantly, but it'll change. Boom, it'll change a half a second later, right? But it's still accurate. So your data is live by the time the person realizes. If your data is changing that much, you're working at the stock market. This is not your concern, right? So I think that's pretty cool. So that's the next kind of thing is this app sync. That's the next major feature. And that's how we're using that. We're just synchronizing the data between app, pushing the data into the top, and then it comes into the page. And it's always there. What's really cool is I could be on a totally other page and update something that's in my app. The minute I come back to the first page, all my data is there again. So it's really, really live feeling, right? Very, very performant. Okay, that's pretty good, but we're still calling the server. We're still not totally online. I'm going to also, this page here, this contacts page, when I go there, it is, let's see, what is it doing? Does it calling my contacts? Let me just check here. I'm just going to actually verify what my contacts page is doing here. And contacts list. And all right, so my contacts here are not actually calling the server. So let's just wire that up quick for real data. It looks like I'm using my development data. Let me just confirm that by doing a quick save. And my contacts all disappear. Yeah. Okay. So if I do the same principle here, I could call the server as well. I would do something like this, enable on-form request. If I did it sort of traditionally, as you've been building your BetterForms apps, and in my contacts here on form request, I'm doing simple 2 lines of code. I'm grabbing all my contacts and I'm grabbing everybody by, normally this would be like some kind of, all the contacts that belong to me as a delivery driver or something like that, or some kind of context. But I'm finding everybody who's 27 years old and I'm putting that into a contacts array. I'm passing that into the app model, top app model. Then over here, let's go into our app space here. And do we have a contacts key? Let's double check, make sure we got one. Yes, we have a contacts. We have to have that key to be able to sync, right? They have to be in both places. So I'm going to go back to my contacts list page and I'm going to turn on my syncing right here. Sync with app, save. All right. Now I've fetched these people, these are fake data that came from over here, and they're all 27 years old. Well, not really fake data. All right, so that's done. So it was really, really easy to to do that, the technology. And normally I would change this around a little bit. I would change this from here, and I would add an action in my on-form load to call. So I do it after the page loads. So in other words, we're a little bit more optimistic and saying, contacts probably haven't changed too much. I'll fetch them anyway, just in case. But I'm going to do that. Now, so the next thing, and we've talked, this feature has been available for a while, is we can actually, I'll do it in 2 steps. The next one is appointments right here. It's the cache in browser. So cache in browser basically saves that data through, even if the user terminates the browsing session. I'm going to leave it off for just a few seconds first. All right, now we're halfway there to making our app work offline. Obviously, it's not going to work offline just yet because we do have to fetch the data. And I also have this edit page. So let's see how we can use AppSync to make an edit page now. So remember, anything
Charles, can I jump in with a question?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I'm just confused on why you need the data in the page model at all. Why not just use the app model?
Great question. The data is in the page model because most of the BetterForms elements, aside from HTML, like if this is an HTML element, so it can reference app.
Right.
BetterForms elements can't reference app directly. That's the major difference, right? And then we thought about, is that a good feature to add, like to make app local to the page? So the BetterForms elements, you put something like in let me find where's this detail? This is appointments detail here. So let me go into this detail page for a second. Like you got this account name. Here it is. Account name right here. Here it is here. So right now it says model, but maybe it would say, app dot something or something like that. Like you'd have to do that. And that might be something that we could consider. I don't know if there's a huge benefit to it yet, to be honest with you. But that's the main reason is these elements can't. So to make these elements all work, you need to sort of copy that data. There are a lot of times when you're using a key name like name, we use name. We don't say like invoice name or delivery name, we just name or ID, and that is related to that one entity. So you may have 2 different pages, and that same key wouldn't make sense if you shared them, implicitly shared them, because they would interfere with each other. So I think the developer might run into some gotchas if we just made it local. All right, so let's look at this page. So this page is basically to get the data onto the page. This is just very simple. This is regular BetterForms here. I'm just going to go back to this appointments list, and let's have a look at this. Do I have some development data? Yes, I do. Okay. I think everybody knows you can turn the development data on and off there. So if I look at this edit button, just do a find edit. Here it is down here. The button is calling when you click on it, it's calling a named action. Let me just do this so you can see it a little clearer. It's calling a named action called edit appointment. It's passing as a parameter a JSON object with a key of appointment and the value of the appointment object. So that row, if you will. So it's passing that into a named action called edit appointment. And all edit appointment is doing, let's have a look. There's 2 things. It's doing some JavaScript and then it's doing a path action. So could really be broken into 1 line. I broke it into 2 for readability. It's taking the options. That's the equivalent of FileMaker's get script parameter and saying appointment equals JSON get element, get script parameter, appointment key. That's basically what it's doing there. And then I'm pushing that into a key called the active appointment. It's separate from my array of appointments. So I'm pushing it into a key called active appointment. And that's it. Then if I go to my actual page now, my detail page, and this can be with modals, exactly the same thing. I have a key called active appointment. And we'll just turn this, like we leave that on for now. I have a key called active appointment. And what else is going on in here? Traditionally, I'd have to do this. I'd have to say model.appointment equals app.activeAppointment, right? So normally I'd have to do this traditionally, and we don't have to do that anymore. So what we can do now instead is, actually, let me just edit this. Yeah, I didn't change it. Okay. Is we just turn on a data model, active appointment, and I just synchronize it. All right. So that keeps the active. So I push the active appointment in, and then I just synchronize this page to the active and any other subsequent pages to that active appointment, the one that it's like selected. And now what's kind of cool about that is let's go back to here. Sorry, where's my app? There it is. Let's go into here. So this is grabbing that data from the app model and bring it into the page. I can make my edits. All my pages work right out of the box, like doing this technology or technique. I can change my settings and such. Now, what about the save button? Well, I'm editing a single one of these appointments. I want to make this save. In order to make this function offline, I really want to just save the data locally for now, right? So I need to do a couple things. So let's look at that. Let's look at the detail page. And here's my save button. That's what the button's wired up to, right? You can see it's calling a named action right here called save. And here's save here. I got a few things. We got a function, an alert, and a path. All right, so the function, let's see what's happening here. This one, I actually used GPT to write this. I would think I could have wrote it in 3 lines instead, and I wouldn't have put all the comments in there, but I left it in there because I think it's okay. So it's basically, first of all, it's saying into the active appointment, it's saying is modified as true. That's not a key that I normally have in that appointment. But I modified it because I'm going to need to know that later on, which keys, which pieces of data were modified. All right, then I am using Lodash here to find in the app appointments, find the one that has an ID of app.theActiveAppointments ID, right? So I'm doing enter find FileMaker, enter find mode into the apps appointments table. This is equivalent locally, where the ID field equals this. Once I have an appointment, if I have the appointment, then this is a Lodash assign. It's the same as object assign. It is taking the appointment I've just modified and updating it. Otherwise, it is adding a unique ID. Because if it's a brand new one, I didn't add a new button in here, but I should add the support for that, a new button. And I would add a unique ID to that appointment. And then I think it's get UUID. I should double check. Excuse me. Let me just see. UUID, is it you? I just don't know. I just want to check the case. Yeah, it is. Okay. It's grabbing a unique ID and adding it into the appointment, and then it's saving it. Pushes to add it onto the end of the record, like creating new record, right? This is all local now. So let's make sure that works because I haven't actually tried it. So let's go back to appointments. We got Friday live, April, and that's wrong. I'm going to say March, and then save. And do you see what happened? It said March, but when I went back to this page, it's doing a form request and I didn't save it in the database, right? So it grabbed the wrong one, but it is working. So there's an alert here. Let's change that to, let's get rid of this and let's change that to data saved or something like that. Appointment updated, something along that. That's good enough. All right. And then finally, we're doing a path that goes back to the main page, right? So you notice so far I haven't called the FileMaker yet. Right? I haven't called the server to save the data yet. So I've got this ability to make these changes, but when it goes back to this page, it's actually doing a call. My pages all kind of work together right now. I need to do a little bit more. I need to do a few more things here to make this work offline. So I haven't really done too much, but a bit more. So the first thing I need to do is I need to make sure that these pages are loaded and the user doesn't have to visit them. Most of the time, it's not a problem. They visit their app and then they suddenly go offline. But let's assume that it's a worst case scenario and they've just installed the app and they put it in their pocket like an e-ticket. And then they get on the train and they're in the tunnel or whatever, and then they go to access their e-ticket and they're offline, right? They haven't maybe clicked that link. That would be a scenario where they haven't clicked or followed that link. So we have a new feature here, and this is under navigation. And if we start with this home page, you notice there was a little flash and then a page loaded because a page I haven't visited since the last reset. So let's go to my default page here. And this is a new feature called pre-cache. And now this page, when I save this, this page will be loaded as part of the initial payload. So when I've refreshed this, it will refresh. And then the second load, you notice there was no delay. The second time was because it emptied out the local caching here. So what's really cool about this is now this page is instant, but when I go to this page, watch, it'll flash and then boom. And if I go to this one, loader and then back, right? So let's change those ones. So let me go back to here again. And the next one is appointments and the other one's contacts. So appointment list. Let's turn on the pre-caching for that. There's pros and cons to this. You are increasing the payload of the initial download, right? So let's save that. So if I refresh this, you see it's instant. When I go to here now, zero loaders, right? Because the page is already in the app. And I go to here, same thing. Oh, sorry, that one has an on-form request. So that's why that one's doing it. We can't get rid of that because you're going to FileMaker, right? We can't bypass that. All right. So yeah. So if I turn the on-form request off, we'll get rid of that. I'm going to turn pre-caching off because when you're developing with the pre-cache on, it can be kind of weird. There's kind of a partial bug that we haven't coded out yet, and it'll come in the next update. And what it is the cache, like I said, the cache is fairly aggressive. So when you go back to this page, if I've made a change, it may look like you haven't saved the change until you do a site refresh. So I'm just going to turn these off for just a second and we'll turn them back on when we actually need them. Okay. Next. So we're pushing the data, we're grabbing the data into here. We're updating it. Actually, you can, even if I do this, if I go to here and you can see the app work actually offline right already. If I jump into here and let's cache the appointments, there we go. And I'll cache contacts there. So now the app actually has enough code now to more or less work offline. So I go back to here, I refresh. I'm just going to visit these pages once because I have pre-caching turned off. There. All right. So now let's just simulate going offline and let's go to network. If you need to do this, no throttling, we'll turn it to offline. And I'm going to turn off the responsiveness. All right. So my page is actually offline. And I believe, refresh, it's still offline, but I can actually refresh. All right. And you will see some, you will see some things where it's saying, hey, I'm trying to connect, and you'll see BetterForms. It'll keep trying to ping, but it is offline. And I'm going to go to my next page. My data is there. Friday, April. Let's just make a change. March and save Friday, including my typo. I'm going to close my, actually, let me hit refresh. Still there. Copy the URL, close the tab. Oh, shoot. If I open the tab, hold on. I'm going to have to open the tab and I'm going to go to offline first. Make sure I'm offline. I'm still offline here. Because if I open the tab with the console closed, it'll automatically go online. Put the URL in. Now I'm offline right now. Still there, right? So this app so far is working totally offline. Let me fix this. I think that's pretty cool. Right? I didn't have to do too much heavy lifting there. Eduardo did it all. Dan, you had asked earlier, why is putting the data in the app better than the model? Because you don't have to fetch it each time. You can just remember it in one spot, basically. So the data is always there. Plus, a lot of times in other pages, you need to add, like, for example, I'm on this page here, or here in BetterForms Editor, I'm on this page, but I need to know this data. That little gray piece of data, the nav slug, is actually not coming from that record in terms of the database. It's coming from over here. So that would be an example of that. All right, so my app is kind of offline. I got one more piece to code, and that's to get the data pushed in. So how do we handle hooks, right? Because it can't run a hook right now. I'm going to close this and go back online. It can't handle a hook, or sorry, how do we handle hooks? And that's a little trickier. So there's a few different ways, and we're going to probably code this in as soon as we find a best practice. We'll code it right into the framework. But here's what I'm doing is I'm adding a script, and I'm going to create a script called sync with server. All right, and sync with server, I started to code some of it out already here. Right, I haven't coded this part. I'll do it in a second here. And sync with server is basically saying if navigator, that's a reserved word in the browser. Basically, it's the browser. If the browser is online, and we have a better method of checking that as well, but this one's a pretty good way. Then it's hitting the API call, API endpoint. This /API is your BetterForms API. All BetterForms apps have a built-in API, and we're pinging your actual FileMaker server. So it's not even checking that the browser is connected to an internet or Ethernet. It's also checking that we're online and we're actually making a connection to the BetterForms cloud, and it's actually doing a ping to your actual FileMaker database to make sure it's available. If it's available, we're just going to log in good. And if it's not available or offline, we're just going to say that it's offline. Now, what it's also doing is if we are online and we got a response from your FileMaker server, then we can normally this is an action. Remember, actions will continue. But if we're not online, then we can code and we can say something like actions clear. We can probably put this in here, probably there as well. So this will clear all the subsequent actions. In other words, it'll be like, it's like doing a FileMaker halt script or abort script, whatever it is. So it's doing the same thing. That's all that's happening there. So if I call this, it'll basically check to see if I'm online, do a ping to the FileMaker server. And if I'm not, it just fails silently. It just shuts the rest of the script off. So that means I need one more action on here. I need one more action to go into this bit of code here. So I'm just going to actually grab a utility hook from. Sorry if I'm going off the rails here. I want to pick a page here. Doesn't matter which page. I just need to grab that snippet. Incidentally, Hassan has been working day and day. I won't say day and night, but day and day. And I think in another week or two, we'll have this will be the drag and drop script interface. We're updating this one here as well. So that's coming in the very, very near future. Utility hook. I'm just going to grab one from here for now. And sync with server. And then I just have to add, actually, I already have it in here. Okay. So the second action is going to be running a utility hook. And I will pass an argument called something like sync like that. Okay. So when do I want to call sync with server? Save this. I probably want to call it in my app. Let's go back to my app here. I probably want to call sync every time I visit this page, because sync is both ways, right? Think of the word. So I want to update my data and send any edits that I have locally to the server and fetch some new data from the server. And that would, if I hit save, it would do the same thing. It updates my data, goes back to here, it's sync. So I really only need it from this page, my appointments page. So let's wire that up so that we're doing that. So let's go to, I haven't done this at all yet. So we got on form load. Right now this isn't actually doing anything. So I'm going to call a named action, run named action, and it's called sync with server. So I'm going to run that sync with server code there. Save. Hopefully that didn't break anything. Now, sync with server is going to check for online. If it works, it's going to try to call this hook sync. So I should actually see that sync in my helper file. So let's open that up and just make sure that that's working. All right. And if I visit that page, it should, there's my ping. You can see it right away. Oh, no, sorry, it's my dash. And there it looks like my ping. Mind you, it looks like it's a utility hook. So I'll have to check that out. We might be calling that. Did we on form load? Named action sync with server. Okay, we are calling utility hook, but we're not handling that specific argument. Okay. And let me just make sure that I expect to see that API call in here, and I don't. Just remove this for a second. That's turned off. Let's just do this. No calls. Okay. Oops. And no calls when I hit save. That's my dashboard. Like, let's refresh. What am I calling this? All right, I might be missing something small. Save. We're not calling save, sync with server. And let me do this and let's just check that one more time. I'm running a utility hook called sync. So let's have a look at that. This is a refresh. Where is that coming from? I am missing something.
Maybe try
Okay.
to make a site level save, because when we enable the cache, I don't know, could have affected that too.
No, it shouldn't for the I disabled pre-caching, right? Oops.
Yeah, but then you had it enabled before, so maybe
Right, maybe okay.
that could have saved something.
Yeah, because it's a page, right? Because I was wondering why.
Yeah.
Okay, that's most likely what it was. Okay, that was that funny behavior that we were talking about. So let me just try this again. Make sure. Clear. Where's the empty inbox? Empty inbox. And let's do this. That's the dash. All right, it's calling it an appointment utility hook from refresh, but there's for sure no refresh in there unless I'm on a list, appointments list. Maybe I was editing. Oops. Maybe I was editing the wrong one. I must have been editing. What
Yeah.
page was I editing?
Maybe the detail.
Okay, that's probably not too good. All right, so I was editing. Everybody's probably done that before. Contact, was it contacts list or the detail? You think? Let's see. That might have been contacts list. Okay. Okay, that's what it was. All right, sorry, I was totally on the wrong page. And I'm sure nobody's ever made that mistake before. Onload, I don't need this one here. We don't need this and we don't need that. So I can get rid of this. Let's see. Can't wait till this bug is gone. There we go. All right, save. Okay, let me just, again, that was my bad. I was on the wrong page. Appointment detail, we want appointments list. Got 9 minutes to make this. Can he do it? Oh, wrong page. All right. On form load, instead of running the utility hook, which is what we're doing right now to fetch the data, what I really want to do is I want to run a named action. And I can get rid of this. man. This is like whack-a-mole here. Michael fixed this bug. He should have hot patched it because it's really annoying. Oh, there it is. It's something about the anyway, I don't know what it is. All right. And this is called sync with server. Let's see. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, sync with server. Sync with server. Okay. So now we're going to run sync with server. And let's test that out. And there it is. So there's the API call. That's the ping. And there's the utility hook afterwards that runs. All right. So we're looking pretty good so far now. A little bit of FileMaker work done, and then our app will fully work offline, hopefully. So the first part is let's create a script. That's something called like, this is not going to be in the contacts hook. It's going to be in the appointments. It's going to be a support script. And I'm going to call it, there's a utility branch here. There's one for refresh. And I think I called this one sync. You see appointments. Type, it doesn't have a name. Okay. I'm going to call it sync. All right. And from here, we're going to need a script in here. And I started to create one called create and update appointments. And actually, I'll just put the code right in here just for simplicity. So before I fetch the new data and send it to the server, I want to receive all of the data. So I'm going to call it perform script. And the script is called create update appointments. Right in here. There it is there. And then finally, I'm going to do another perform script after I create an update for the appointments, and I'm going to run the on-form request. So in other words, I'm going to save my data. We'll write that script. And then after I've saved my data, I'm going to refresh the data because there might be some calculations and there might be some new data and send that back every time we hit this sync. Okay, just a second. Guys, I apologize for this. Like I said, hey, live coding, that's okay. And once you do find it, it's going to be something so blatantly obvious that you say, how did I miss that? But that's just the way it is. Every bug is a challenge until it's solved. And then it's like, oh, well, that isn't so bad. You can explain it easy. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions so far about that, though. Our app almost runs fully offline. The only thing it doesn't do right now is save. And for some reason, I must have a typo or something somewhere. So I apologize for that, but we'll figure it out in just a second.
Charles, question.
Yeah.
If there's a login, would different logins save different caches so that you could be offline and have maybe two people on one device?
Yeah, not unless you coded it in there, no.
Okay.
So in other words, because the authentication sort of doesn't really happen in the browser. It happens more on the server. Like what happens is when you log in, you pass your credentials to the BetterForms cloud. That validates the credentials and returns a JWT, a JSON web token. And that's like an encrypted but readable string. And that's saved in the browser and that's passed with every call. So that string, because it's encrypted and signed, digitally signed, it can't be hacked. And that's passed to the call. So unless you build some kind of multi-tenant under one sign-in account, you can't have two different people log in. You also can't authenticate when you're offline because you have nothing to authenticate against. So okay. That's another issue there. And that goes with any device. You can't, you think about any app. I can use most apps offline on my phone, but I can't actually authenticate when I'm offline because of the nature of authentication.
And
Charles,
that,
what would you say?
Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
That token, when that expires on the server, I guess the app will continue to work until it makes a call to the server. Where is the expiry in the token?
Yeah, hold on for a sec. I think in our on, in our on-form request, not the request, but on the on-form fetch, I think we do a local authenticate. And then if that fails, that's a really good question. I think that will be an issue. Like, I think that'll be a thing that it won't work.
Okay, you're thinking that 24 hours after you log in, the JSON web token will expire even if you're even if you're offline.
The token will.
That'll-
The Eduardo, do you recall that we authenticate? It's in form.js there, one there from the view. We check we fetch the form, and if the form has the flag set for that it's supposed to be authenticated, then we challenge the authentication.
Yeah. Then we try to re-authenticate or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now it would normally re-authenticate, look like it does that now. You can see that. But these pages don't have any authentication turned on right now for this demo. But that's a pretty valid point that might be a thing to consider. And we may have to look at how we when we fetch it out of when we fetch it out of the cache, we don't actually check that. That would be an easy mod to make though.
Okay. And so basically, if you want to make an offline, if you want to make your app work offline, basically anytime there's a utility hook, you have to wrap it in a check.
Yeah.
Right?
So what we're thinking of is modify.
Let me tell you what I'm getting at is like I can think of situations where you might want a part of the app to work offline, but not the rest.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's usually the core loop or something. Like you don't need like new signups and all this kind of crazy stuff to work offline. It's usually just the reporting part or the directory part of an app. Like this, in this case, it's what is it? It's being able to go in here and make some changes and saying, yes, this is complete, and then hitting save. Right. That's really the core loop of this pseudo example, but you don't need to add every little edge case that's in your main app, although people will claim that they need to. They don't really. Very seldom.
Right, but what I'm wondering is, do you like if you just leave most of the app as is, and then the user clicks a button that calls a utility hook, that'll cause a timeout error and
well, yeah, so you can handle those. That's the cool thing is you can there's a couple things here. If you wanted to keep your app totally as is, if you wait probably another next 2.1789 somewhere in that range, we're looking at changing the way the utility hook happens so that the utility hook always checks for online offline. It currently in this version, it actually does do a check, and it'll wait. It checks for network connectivity, and it waits up to so many seconds. What happens in a browser is if I'm over here, that browser tab or this browser tab can go to sleep, and it slows down really, really slow. Like, so that doesn't use, because you're running something like Figma, there's all kinds of computational stuff going on. So it slows down and to save battery and such. And we were finding that on mobile devices where the battery saving, like on an iPad kind of thing, where the battery is really has to be saved a lot, that a user would go and jump back into the BetterForms app and they would hit a button right away, because the browser still renders the app right away, but it's just not connected to the internet. So they'd hit a button that would try to run a hook, and then that would fail. But if they waited like 2 seconds for it to connect, so we've added some checking for that. So it waits, if it's not online, I think it's just a handful of seconds or something before it fails. And says, and then it throws us an error that's trappable, that says you're offline. And at which case you can just take the user, you could check, like as a developer, you could say, okay, he's or she is not on the offlineable pages. So just show them a message, say, hey, you can't access this until you're online, but you can do these other things. So you could trap it all and then handle it nicely without modifying your app. All right. What we're going to do is just continue here, have a quick draw. I think everybody knows the rules, so I'm not going to go over them. Hey, how come this person's in here twice? Who was it? Shubham, are you here? Going once? Unmute twice? Yarun's here. He's from the same team.
All right, Shivam left the building, I'm afraid.
Sorry, is that you?
No, Shivam left the building, I think.
Okay.
So spin again.
Having a coffee with Elvis. Hey, Jason, finally. Oh, no, Jason. No. All right. Stuart, you around?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here, but
Right.
I won before you. I'm still waiting. So spin for somebody else.
Hit not Lena up. She's got a stack of them, right? She pushes them out every now and then, but she does have a bunch of things. So hit her up. And then we've already got one. The newest ones are these water bottles. They're actually, I think they're really nice. They're pretty good. So, all right. Okay, so I'll pass it up one more time here. This is brutal. All right, I just heard you run, so we're good to go. All right. All right. We're gonna finish up. We're gonna finish up today, guys. Thank you very much. We're gonna hang out anyway, because I got to debug this thing that's killing me. And I hope you see us next month. We don't have any guests, but if you have some ideas, I don't know if you like live coding or not too much. So that was a request in the last one, and but it can be painful when there is a bug or an issue. So nonetheless, thanks for coming out.